Welcome to my Curious Mind podcast. Today I want to talk about the empty cup, or empty your cup. When I first came across this story was in a book called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones by the Zen monk Paul Reps. It's sold over 1 million copies. Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. Now, it has inspired multiple lives, and I'm happy to say that it's still in print and you can still find it. But I'm going to talk about one story that's in the book. It's called Empty Your Cup. Now, Bruce Lee once said, "The usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness." Now, here's the story. There was a Japanese Zen master named Nan-in who lived during the Meiji era. During his days as a teacher, he was visited by a university professor who was curious about Zen. Being polite, Nan-in served the professor a cup of tea. As he poured the professor's cup, it became full, but Nan-in kept pouring, and as the professor watched the cup overflow, he could no longer contain himself and said, "It is overfull, no more will go in." Nan-in turned to the professor and said, "Like the cup, you are too full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Now, this is a typical sort of teaching story or a point of reflection from Zen. Often, when we go and meet somebody we don't know, or we've been introduced to somebody we don't know, we already have preconceived ideas about who they are and what they are, and how they will either be useful to you or you could help them. There's any number of things that's going on in your mind. Now, if we take the mind as being a cup, which Nan-in was referring to, it's already overfull. In fact, it's full of speculation, it's full of judgment, it's full of everything except understanding what current reality or this person is in front of you. As an observer here in Canada, I have watched the US elections, midterm elections, with great interest, because what happens next to us, I'm in Canada and the United States, it's a little bit like being next door to an elephant and being in the same room. When they roll over, as the mouse, we have to kind of get out the way and see what's going on. But as I watched this election, I was struck by the amount of judgment and understanding, or so-called understanding, between the two different parties and the two different perceptions. And if we took that as being real, not a politician standing up propagandizing about his or her party, if we took that as true, the United States doesn't have a curious soul on a planet. I mean, it's so full of judgment, the cup is so full that nothing can get in. There isn't room for it. Now, I revisited the Empty Your Cup story a while ago, and suddenly it popped up when I was listening to two commentators about the current election results. And I was just amazed how quickly judgment and opinion was offered forth about why people voted the way they voted. Now, if you think about your own life, how often do you just react from a full cup instead of a place of curiosity? As you know, this podcast is called My Curious Mind. I mean, do you go around with curiosity being your first thought? Like, what is this? What's happening? How am I? What am I doing? How does it affect what I see right now? Or do you go around with a full cup? Oh, you're a Democrat. You are socialist, left-leaning, and pinko communist? Or do you go, Republican, blue-dyed, maniac, capitalistic pig? I mean, I've heard all sorts of those things. But really, everybody is, first and foremost, a human being, either curious or not curious. What would happen for you if, when you were going about your daily life, interacting with people, you approached it with an empty cup? I mean, I love Bruce Lee's comment, the usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness. If you're a student, that is really critical because you are relying on those around you to provide you with opportunities to learn. But you can only learn if there's space in your mind, space in your heart, space in your intellect to allow the information to come in. Now, I want to give you a different analogy, one that I think is very useful. In front of our judgment, in front of our life, our mind is like, should we say, like a windshield that we drive life along the road. We look through the windshield as we're going down the highway. Now, we don't notice the windshield, which is in fact like all of the judgments that we have, all of the opinions that we have, until something hits it like mud hitting the windshield, and then the wipers go furiously back and forth. Most of the time, we assume that way we look at the world is clear without judgment. However, now I want to be polite like Nan-in, but that's for most people just not possible. We are full of judgment. We are full of opinions. We are full of the way that it should be, shouldn't be, how it is. In fact, we don't look through a clean windshield at all. We look through rather like a mosaic of a stained glass window. Each little piece has its own meaning and context and structure. So you could ask someone, do they believe in a green world? And if they're a farmer, they might think, well, yeah, of course I do. I run cattle. I have a rancher. On the other side is, oh no, I'm a vegetarian. I grow ecological vegetables that they're as pure as I can make. But it's the same question. And that is what's fascinating and actually disappointing and potentially uplifting about being human. We all live in the screen of our views. We all look through our context, through our beliefs, through the way that we think it is, and also the way we think it should be. Now, if you were driving down a highway and you think there should be an exit right now and just turned and there wasn't, you'd end up in the ditch or in a causeway or in more traffic. So we're pretty accurate when we're on a highway because our life depends on it and we can make adjustments to what is going on the highway. If the car in front of us brakes suddenly and violently, we do take evasive action. We slam on the brakes and we take care of ourselves, working our way through the traffic. But we don't do that when it's our opinions or our beliefs. We don't take care of ourselves. What we tend to do is when it hits that little triangle of our belief, it's like a little button, really. Our button gets pushed and all this automatic stuff turns up. Now, what if you were to take some time to delay the response and actually be curious? What would happen to you? What would happen to your relationships, particularly the relationships which you have the most problem with? If instead of reacting to a comment from someone you find difficult to work with at work, you were to take a deep breath and be curious, end up with an open space or empty your cup and said, "Tell me more," what might happen? Now, some people will take advantage of that. I'm sure they will. But the great majority of people will pause themselves because often they are in reaction to you. And if you give them an opportunity, perhaps something else can happen. I think that's the greatest thing about approaching life with knowledge. Yes, you don't want to be stupid and say, well, do you want me to empty my mind right down to the bottom? No. I don't want you to empty the judgments and the opinions and be curious. What would it be? What could be? And let it unfold rather than jump straight forward. Or you could be like the professor saying, I know this is true. Now, in science, you'll never hear them say something is 100%. Because science, because it is research-based, it is logic-based, has seen itself correct its belief from a flat Earth to a round Earth, to the understanding of gravity, the well of time, the movement of the planets around the Earth. I mean, it's not that long ago in time that we believed the sun revolved around us, only to find out we revolve around a sun. We're part of a solar system. We're part of many, many solar systems. And there are billions and billions of us. Stars, that is. Star systems, that is. Curiosity has brought us a long way. Think about that for a moment, being curious. The men of science and the men of literature and the men of theater and art and storytelling were all curious people, curious about what if we did this, or what is going on here, operating with an empty cup. You might say, well, perhaps I can go half a cup empty. Well, yeah, you could. That would be a start, wouldn't it? But you say, well, he's only got half a cup. Well, being open to what occurs in front of you and noticing what is going on with yourself first and the other person or the environment that you're in could save your life. It could save somebody else's life. It could make the planet a better place so your children or your parents or your grandparents could live longer in a better way. Curiosity. It's such a wonderful gift to be curious. Now, I've been curious for most of my life. I was born with why as the first question I can remember. And I still don't know how I remember always asking why, except perhaps when one grandmother said, "No more whys, have a cookie." Well, she didn't actually say have a cookie. She actually offered me a muffin. But what if you were just curious? What would be the benefits? Let's see, you could learn more, you could be more efficient, you might discover more about your world, you might discover how to do what you're doing easier with less work. You might discover a person that you could fall in love with, and you might be open for someone to get to know you, that they might fall in love with you. You might even fall in love with yourself. No, I'm not advocating that everybody use this exercise to gain romantic and personal partnerships. But curiosity leads everywhere. What if you were to lead your life with an empty cup? Don't throw out what you know, but be open to learn more. You know, everyone is doing the best that they can based upon what they know. So your decisions that you currently make about your finance or your eating habits or the way you drive or the way you handle your bank account is based upon what you know. And if you're not very successful in those areas, I would be extremely curious about what can I learn about that, or how can I learn about that. And of course, the first step to learning is being curious. Curiosity did not kill the cat. It taught the cat where the territory was, where potential mate was, who fed it, who petted it, what was safe, and how are they. So as a cat model, curiosity killed the cat. I can tell you that it didn't. Curiosity, I'm having trouble with the word now. Curiosity could change your life. But first, you need to make space for curiosity. Open up and ask questions. And then don't reply, ask more questions. I learned to manage my computer not by reading, but by getting somebody to show me, and then I learned, well, what goes here and what goes there. Learning to do a podcast has been one of the great challenges for me. I couldn't figure out why I didn't feel comfortable. You see, I've been a facilitator, a public speaker, trainer of other speakers, and I didn't realize when I first started doing podcasts how reliant I was on the visual feedback of an audience, their smiles, their frowns, their applauses, and who they were. I didn't understand dead space because as a speaker, I taught people to pause, really long, dramatic pauses. In a podcast, it just sounds like it's wrong and the people turn it off. So while I had knowledge about how to speak and how to write a presentation and how to deliver one and could teach almost anybody to do it, I had to learn how to do a podcast. Recently, I was listening to one of my early podcasts and went, oh my goodness gracious, I wouldn't listen to that. That's just not interesting. Here's the thing. Curiosity. Empty your cup. Empty the immediate focus. Now, don't do that when you're driving or flying a plane or guiding a rocket during a rocket launch. You have to stay focused based upon what you know. You have to do that. So I'm not saying that. I'm particularly interested in encouraging you to have an empty mind when you're coming across a new subject or a new person or a new situation. Be curiosity. Be Mr. Curiosity or Mrs. Curiosity or Miss Curiosity. Really, I'm just saying, be bloody curious about what's going on. One of the great challenges for most people is they are not in something I call current reality. And that will be another podcast based upon another story. Anyway, I wish you well, all the best. Stay curious.